Good afternoon, brothers and sisters. Welcome back again for another afternoon session of Dhamma Talk on this Saturday afternoon. We welcome back Dr. Kah Yein, Sister Dr. Kah Yein, to give us another session on her talk. And I pass the mic to you. Let's put our palm together and say sadhu 3 times. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Thank you very much, brother. Do we need the mic? Oh yeah, we do. It's recorded. Are there 15 of you here? Oh, 13 only. Okay. Thank you very much for coming, and good afternoon, everyone. So we'll make it like last week, where we have let it be interactive, because it's sleepy hour, 2 to 4. So let it be interactive. Please give your opinions, ask questions as I go along the way. Right, today's topic is Brahma of my heart, apple of my eye. So it's about relationship between parents and children. All of us are children because we've got parents. Whether our parents are deceased or not, we were children once upon a time. And some of us may be parents. How many of you are parents? Grandparents, oh, better still, right? So some of you may not be, but I hope this talk is suitable even for people who are not parents and those who do not intend to become parents, because you have nieces and nephews and you will still handle small children, relatives and so on. So I hope it's relevant. Those of you who do not have your parents here anymore, maybe you have uncles and aunties. So it's dealing with the elderly as well. And those of you who are very young, you've got grandparents. So I hope it's also relevant. Right, Brahma of my heart is coined by the Buddha. It is found in the suttas, where the sutta says our parents are Brahmas of our hearts. And why the Buddha called our parents Brahmas, we'll look at that in a little while. Apple of my eye is a common English phrase. It's coined by King Alfred, which means our children. The ones who are dearest to us, our children. Okay, so we'll start off. There's 2 parts in this talk. The first part is about relationship with our children. So again, if you have no children of your own, you have nieces and nephews and little children, neighbors' children, and so on. So it could be relevant. So the first part is about relationship with children. The second part is about relationship with our parents and the elderly. All right, when does the relationship begin with our children? We talk about our children first, our biological children. We are told to start early. So when does the relationship begin with our children? So even though you're not a parent, just imagine that you're a parent. When does the relationship actually begin? Any medical doctors here? No medical doctors. Okay, I'm not a medical doctor. I'm just a PhD holder, so I don't know the medical part of it. But we all know that the relationship begins even before the baby is born, right? We all know that. Mothers, any mothers? Who is a mother here? You're a mother, right? You're not a mother? You're not a mother? No. Oh, you're single. You're a mother? You're not a mother. Okay. So we only have one mother here. You have children? Right. So if you have children, you know the relationship with your children begins even while the child is in the womb. But exactly when does the relationship begin? You kind of sense it, right? Your unborn child will respond to you and so on. Right. So the relationship got to start early. And it's not just between mother and unborn child, but father as well, and grandparents and other people. The whole family is involved, That unborn child is conscious. The moment the unborn child is conscious, it's got consciousness, it can sense a lot of things already, because the senses are being developed. So the relationship already begins. And in a way, their sixth sense is very strong. The unborn child can sense your emotions, the mother's emotions especially, and can respond accordingly. I remember when I was expecting my first child, my daughter, she could kick in time to music. And she has turned out to be very musical. I remember at one time, I think it was 7 months, I attended a course and someone was playing the guitar, and my unborn child, my daughter, was kicking in rhythm to the song. The person was playing the guitar nearby. She was very musical while even in the womb. So how does this happen? Not like I trained her or anything like that. It could be some past life, residue from past life left behind. Maybe she was a very musical person at one time. She has turned out to be very musical even now. So these kind of things you can sense, even before the child is born. And then sometimes when you're unhappy and so on, you pass the emotion down to your unborn child. So it's very important that the mother especially be very calm, compassionate, close to the Dhamma during that period of pregnancy. Okay, when does the mind begin to function? So, is it upon conception? You know how the child is conceived. The moment the sperm and the egg meets, there's already life. There's life, physical life. But when does the mind element enter? Is it upon conception or after? If after, when? When does the mind element actually enter? So we look at the Buddhist perspective. It is said in the suttas that you need 3 elements for life to begin. And when we talk about life to begin, we're not talking about physical life, we're talking about conscious life. 3 elements. You need the father, you need the mother, of course that's the sperm and the egg, and you need the Gandhabba. Now what is Gandhabba? Gandhabba is, loosely translated, being to be born. It's a being that is going to be born. That's the Gandhabba. It's not a soul, because the word soul is very tricky, because the word soul comes from the English culture and has some connotations with Christianity and so on. So we try not to use the word soul because it can be very misleading. Because some people think the soul is something given by God. The moment you think it's something given by God, then it conflicts with Buddhist explanation, because Buddhists do not believe in the existence of Creator God. So we try not to use the word soul. It's just an English word. Alright? So it's the Gandhabba, the being that is to be born. So this Gandhabba comes from where? Somebody has to die, right? In other words, somebody has to die so that that being can be reborn. And when somebody dies, what determines whether that person who has died is going to be reborn or not? What determines whether that person who died will be reborn or not? It's actually quite simple. If that person is enlightened, rebirth stops, right? We know that, right? He will not be born anymore. So as long as that person is not enlightened, there will be another birth. And what causes this other birth is tanha. Tanha, Bhante Punaji. You heard of Bhante Punaji? Bhante Punaji translates this as emotional arousals. The common English translation is always cravings, but he says cravings is very misleading. Because when you say the English word craving, it means greedy, 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 want some more. But he says a more accurate translation is emotional arousals. When the self is involved. Our ego is very strong. That's why we remain being reborn and born. We are not selfless yet. So the ego is very strong. So all these emotions come from the ego. What's in it for me? How does it affect me? The I is very big. The ego is very big. When we become selfless, it's, for example, a simple example of selflessness. You want to help someone. Let's say you want to help someone. An easy example, a beggar. You want to give money to a beggar, you can give in so many ways with so many different intentions. A person can give money to a beggar. So what we see is the person giving money. We don't know the person's intention, The person may be giving to impress his girlfriend. Then it's totally greed. There's no selflessness there. It's for himself. I give because I impress my girlfriend. It's for myself. It's not for the beggar, I want to give because I want to gain recognition. It's for myself. So the self is involved, It's not a selfless act. It's a selfful act. Selfish in a way. Right? It's for myself. A person can give because he really feels sorry for the beggar and wants to help the beggar. Then there is selflessness there. And a person can give, it doesn't matter what happens to him, but he still gives just to help the beggar. So that's very selfless. So you have a range of intentions. People can do good deeds that look good, but the intention is selfish. A lot of people do a lot of good deeds for the recognition, for the name, then it's selfish. But you do it selflessly, then there's no more self in it. So it's the same. As long as the self is there, the ego is really big, there's still all these emotional arousals. That is tanha. Second noble truth, you done the 4 noble truths? Yes. That's greed. Of course. Of course it is. I'm doing it so that I get good karma is total greed. It's greed. You do it for yourself. Good karma for whom? For yourself. It's greed. So sometimes, I don't mean any disrespect, but I hear temples telling people, oh, do this, is very meritorious. It's encouraging greed. You're doing it, you get a lot of merits. I don't think we should even tell people that, That's why you get, like, Vesak Day, people lining up to give robes. They want to line up on the row that goes to Chief Reverend, isn't it? Because they think they get more merits if they give Chief, and then they get less merits if they give those younger monks. Things like that. It's for themselves. So there's greed. So when you do something for the sake of accumulating good karma, greed. You want to do something because you believe that by doing good you erase all your bad doings, greed. It is for the self. It is not for the person that you're helping. So we've got to be very clear with that, and we've got to be really honest to ourselves. It doesn't matter what other people think, as long as we know what our intention is. So, the second noble truth says, thank you very much, thank you. The second noble truth says, all suffering is caused by tanha. This tanha is the emotional arousals that come from the self wanting something for itself. It's something as simple as you give a present to your friend, a birthday present to your friend. Why are you giving it? Is it to make that friend happy? Then there's selflessness, you're thinking of that friend, right? Or is it to make yourself happy? You've got to analyze your own intention. So that's the thing. So what I want to explain actually is rebirth is caused by the tanha still being there. So the being that is about to pass away still has a lot of tanha. Still a lot of emotional arousals. Therefore, it carries on to the next life. And that causes rebirth. In a very simple explanation, that causes rebirth. So it causes another being to be born. And this being that is born has this continuum, it carries through. The karma from that being that died is carried on. So it causes another being to be born. So in order for this being to be born, there has to be father and mother, which means sperm and egg, and the Gandhava. You see, that Gandhava is all those things that is left behind by the person that has died. That Gandhava. Alright, that causes the rebirth. Yes. Due to tanha. Tanha in a way is defilements. It's the greed, hatred and delusion. Yes. Yes. You totally let go. Then you're enlightened. If you have totally let go of your greed, hatred and delusion, you're enlightened already. You can be enlightened even while alive. You don't have to wait until we die, right? The Buddha was enlightened while he was alive. He lived on, right, for so many 45 years and preached. So enlightenment is actually total eradication of defilements, greed, hatred and delusion. When a person really has no more greed, hatred and delusion, you can say that person is enlightened. And that bliss that you experience, like I told you the marker pen story, that's the bliss you experience just for a moment. I experienced just for a moment. And a monk told me it's because you let go of greed. And then it's only letting go of greed, Not even hatred and delusion. We all have a lot of hatred, that's why we still get angry. And we all have a lot of delusion. Haven't let go of those things yet, Just letting go of greed in a little moment, so much bliss already. So you can imagine why the Buddha says it's supreme bliss. Enlightenment is supreme bliss. You can't describe it in words. So, back to here. That causes rebirth. Now, we want to understand this because, especially for potential parents, how do you attract a good Gandhava? You can actually attract a good Gandhava to a certain extent. To a certain extent. It's like the English saying, birds of the same feather flock together. You see, like, how do you attract friends? You tend to go to people who think like you, who have the same interests, right? You wouldn't want to go mix around with a bunch of drug addicts, right? You don't feel comfortable because you're not that type. So similarly, this couple will attract a Gandhava that probably has the same affinity, has affinity with them. So if you're close to the Dhamma, the hope is you attract somebody who was previously a good person to be reborn in your family. It is attraction, it's just common sense. However, that doesn't guarantee it, because there is always the factor of karma. Sometimes somebody is reborn in your family, comes to your family due to some previous karma. Let's hope it's good karma. Because if it is karma that is not good, the person has come to take revenge. Which can happen in a lot of families, They find that the child is so revengeful, so angry with them, giving them a lot of problems and so on. Could be due to some previous karma. For example, even husband and wives, why they get together? Due to some previous karma, some attraction there, some affinity there. The affinity may be good or may be bad. It may be bad. You come back to Po Sao, that kind of thing. To take revenge, yes. Can be collective karma also. Karma is very tricky. It can be individual karma, it can be collective karma. No, it can be the father, the mother, the grandmother, the grandfather, everybody's involved, the sibling, a collective karma, Karma is very tricky. No, not necessarily like that. Let's not proliferate too deeply there. That means, for example, let's say this Gandhava comes to this family because of the strong affinity with the father. Maybe. The karma is so strong that he has to come back to be with the father again. Maybe. Or with the mother. Or maybe with the grandmother. Or with the sibling. Some past karma causes this Gandhava to be attracted to your family, to be reborn. Oh, that I don't know. Whether it's 1 level or 2 levels, we wouldn't know. Karma is very tricky. Oh, that I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know about that. I wouldn't know. You have cases, Professor Ian Stevenson has done research on rebirth, right? Have you heard of this name, Ian Stevenson? He's not a Buddhist. He's from the University of Virginia. He's done a lot of research, no less than 3,000 cases, suggestive of rebirth. His work is so famous in the whole scientific fraternity. He started studying, I think, decades ago. I don't know whether he's still alive now, but his work is really famous. Ian Stevenson, I-A-N, Stevenson. Professor Ian Stevenson, University of Virginia. He has documented at least 3,000 cases suggestive of rebirth. Which means this child, normally when they remember, is from birth until about 7 years old or 9 years old. After that, they don't remember anymore. The memory from the previous life will be erased, will be gone, forgotten, right? So they have some remnants of the memory and they can remember their past life. A lot of such cases which is done. And there was one particular case where the grandfather came back to the family. The grandfather passed away, came back as the grandchild. It's a case of Michael Croston. The boy's name is Michael Croston, England. They were driving, Michael Croston and his parents were driving somewhere in the suburbs in England, back to the family house, the mother's family house. Michael Croston was born after his grandfather died. Actually, the grandfather came back as Michael Croston. So when they were driving back, it was really, really dark, and it's foggy, right, in England. So they lost their way, and they seldom go back to this family house. Only an old uncle lives there. But Michael Croston suddenly said, I know the way. He's never been before, and he was just a little boy. He says, I know the way. So he directed his parents, and they arrived at the house. So when they went to the house, suddenly everything in the house became very familiar to Michael Croston. It's as though he's lived there, but he's never been there all his life. And so they started talking and so on, and he went to the stable and he rode the horse and everything. He knew the whole place, the whole surrounding. And one night, when the grandfather clock struck, something struck in his memory. That's why you see our past life memory is kept in us. Something struck there. He went to the grandfather clock. He reached to the bag. He opened a secret compartment and he took out a bag of money. And that is the money left by the grandfather. So apparently the story is that grandfather died of a stroke. He had a stroke which left him incapable of saying that the money is there. because the emotional arousal, it's so strong, the will is so strong, he just wanted to come back to tell his children that the money is there, it's yours. So the will is so strong that he came back as his grandson. So Ian Stevenson has done so many of such studies. How do you explain the fact that this boy, Michael Croston, knew everything? How do you explain it? And then the most amazing case is the case of Suzanne Ganem. Suzanne Ganem, are you interested? So if you're interested, you just Google these two names, you will see their photos. Suzanne Ganem and Hanan Mansour, they are Lebanese. Hanan Mansour was a lady in her 40s, living in Lebanon. All this happened just decades ago, not ancient, just decades ago. She was in her 40s, she had 2 daughters. She had a heart problem. So in Lebanon, you can't get the heart surgery done. You have to go to US to do it. So she went to US and the doctors told her chances are 50-50. She might die because that problem is quite serious. Now, before she went in for the operation, the will was so strong, she wanted to contact her daughter Leela in Lebanon. So she kept going to the phone, the public phone, and dialing the number again and again and again, trying to call Leela. Leela is her favorite daughter. But she couldn't call Leela. So she went in for the operation, she died. 10 days later, note this, 10 days only, not 9 months. 10 days. 10 days later, a baby was born in Lebanon. So, Hanan Mansour died in the US. The baby was born back in Lebanon, just 10 days apart. So, a baby was born in Lebanon, and this baby was born in the Ganem family. So, she was called Suzanne Ganem. Now, when Suzanne Ganem could walk and could talk a bit, the first thing she did, she was obsessed with going to the phone and picking it up and saying, "Hello, Leela. Hello, Leela. Hello, Leela." That's her first word. "Hello, Leela." So parents say, "Who is Leela?" And it's a little child, probably 2 years old, I don't know, going to pick up the phone, "Hello, Leela. Hello, Leela." And then as she grew, they could find out from her who Leela is. She says, "Leela is my daughter." This little girl said, "Leela is my daughter." Then said, "So and so is my husband." All the names are correct. This little girl saying that she has a husband. And as she grew older and older, she revealed details of the Mansour family. And the details were absolutely accurate until Professor Ian Stevenson came to study the case. It became so famous. So he came to study. They actually located the Mansour family, not far, from where they live. You see how strong the will is? When you still have that tanha, it's so strong, So they located the family. Everything was accurate, including family secrets. Suzanne Ganem, this little girl, even know the family secrets, Like there was a brother who passed away very early in childhood that nobody knew about, She knew, things like that. Where she kept her jewelry, blah, blah, blah. Everything, And the most amazing thing is, Suzanne Ganem and Hanan Mansour look alike. Even the face was similar. It's amazing. You just have to Google these 2 names and you see the photographs. You know where I read about this? Not in any Buddhist book. In the Star. The Star highlighted this case. Many, many years ago, more than 20 years ago. I read it in the Star. And I saw the photograph, one yellowed photo and one colored photo. I thought they are the same person. They're actually 2 different persons. It was Hanan Mansour and Suzanne Ganem. It's amazing. So this is the most convincing case I've read so far. Even the face is the same, So, think about it, 10 days apart. Which means Hanan Mansour died so that Gandhabba had to be reborn, that Gandhabba quickly went and be reborn as quickly as possible. 10 days, not 9 months. So if you wonder, who was occupying that fetus for the 8.5 months? Who was occupying the fetus? Was there even a Gandaba in that fetus? Because Hannah Monsoon was still alive, right? She died and 10 days she went there, So did she hijack the fetus? Maybe there was another Gandaba there to be born, but she went there and, hey, you get out. I want to be born. She hijacked that fetus. And people who go through, past life regression, they remember being hijacked. But how true that is, we don't know. Because we can't trust past life regression, Sometimes if you have a feeling that's so strong, you think you were the king of Cambodia before, you go into past life regression, I was the king of Cambodia, because you believe so strongly in it, right? So you can't really trust the information that you get from past life regression. But perhaps you can trust when a small child gives you details like that, not under hypnosis, A small child can give you all these family secrets. Then how do you doubt this, right? Last time our chief flew all the way to Australia because this little boy in Australia could chant in Pali. And he says he was alive during the Buddha's time. And he chanted in that ancient Pali, And his parents never even taught him Pali. He chanted the suttas. So he could relate what happened during the Buddha's time, how the funeral pyre couldn't be lit. Do you know that? Because they were waiting for Mahakassapa to come. The chief disciple. When the Buddha passed away, Mahakassapa was far away. So they wanted to cremate the Buddha, but the fire just wouldn't lit, Because somehow only when Mahakassapa came back, according to the stories, the fire lit by itself. This little boy knew. How did the little boy know? He says he was there. And late chief says, the story is true. So late chief flew all the way to see that little boy. And his chanting was recorded. So anyway, we've gone off the track already. So we come back to here. So that's rebirth, alright? That's rebirth, which means there's so many factors governing who will come into your family, It could be that Gandaba is so desperate, it wants to be reborn. It could be some past life karma. It could be so many things. So we cannot actually determine what happens, what matters, and what causes this Gandaba to be born in your family. But the best we can do, since there's so many factors we cannot control, right? The best we can do is to stay very close to the Dhamma. So hopefully you attract a good Gandaba. And not someone who is previously a drug lord in Cuba coming to be reborn in your family. Alright? So that's what potential parents can do. That's all you can do. There's so many things you cannot control. Alright? The rest, you just leave it to karma. Alright. Now, duties of parents from the Sigalovada Sutta. It sounds very simple. And it's enough. There are only 5. Restrain children from doing wrong. Encourage them to do right. So these two will be what the practice of Buddhism is all about. Avoid evil and do good. It's very easy to say avoid evil and do good. It's also very easy to teach our child, don't do this, but do this. It's very easy to lecture to a child. If you're talking about Gen Y and Gen Z children nowadays, it's going to be ineffective if you're going to lecture to them. Because they don't like being lectured to. Nowadays, children don't like it. In our time, we didn't mind our parents teaching us and we listened and we obeyed. But times have changed. You look at the Gen Z. You know Gen Y, right? You're about Gen Y, aren't you? How old are you? He's Gen Y. He's Gen Y. We are baby boomers. Then came the Gen X. I'm at the borderline of baby boomer and then Gen X. Then you come Gen Y. My children are Gen Y. My children are 25 and 23. Now the new children coming, they're from Gen Z. They're from another planet. Gen Y is already from another planet. So, they don't like being lectured to, they're not going to listen. So how do you restrain children from doing wrong and encourage them to do right? Even with my children, it was already difficult. So what I found effective is that you do right. You do right and you don't do wrong. They're watching you all the time. They're watching you. Children are so smart, They come from another planet, as I say. They are so smart. They're not bodo like us, Last time, our time, our parents say, you sit there and eat a banana. We sit there and eat a banana, right? We all. No, we were generally obedient children. Because we come from a generation where we were taught to, our parents even said, don't do as I do, but do as I say, and so on nonsense. It's not going to work on today's children. So if you're dealing with little children or even teenagers, it's not going to work. I find the best way is by example. You teach by example. So you just demonstrate what is right, what is wrong. You don't do what is wrong. You demonstrate what is right, and you do not lecture. As simple as what? You take your children to the coffee shop. The waiter serves you a drink. Do you say thank you? Many people don't. Your child is watching you. And then if you say thank you, just say thank you. You don't have to say thank you. Okay, somebody serves you drink. Thank you. Then you see, mommy said thank you. Not going to work. No. Not going to work. You just do it. You go to a supermarket with your children, and the cashier gives you extra money. You give back the extra money. You don't have to lecture the child. You're walking with your children to your car. You see litter on the ground. You pick it up and put it in the dustbin. You don't have to say a word. Your child is watching you, and your child will learn. No matter how difficult you think your child is, give it time. Your child will learn. And when your child comes to the 20s, you start to see yourself in your child. Those of you who are parents, you see yourself in your child. And what you see is the person who's been most significant in his or her life. You will see the image of that person in your child. The character, the attributes, the person who is most significant in your child's life. It could be your grandparents. If it was your parents who were bringing up the child, you see your parents in your child. They learn by example. Okay, they absorb things like a sponge. And children nowadays don't like to be lectured to. When my children were small, of course, like any other parent, I sent them to Dhamma school. After 1-2 lessons, they declared, we are not going, it's boring. So I didn't force them. So my children never went through Dhamma school because they found it boring. They didn't want to go. So I didn't push them. They didn't go. But I taught them myself, and I've never lectured them, Because children don't like to be lectured to. So you just do it. Like, say, for example, you want to teach the 4th precept, not lying. You don't lie. Because you can tell your child, 4th precept says do not lie. Not effective. It's not effective. The moment you pick up the phone and you start lying and your child is listening, your child has learned something else already. That it's okay to lie. My parents lie anyway. So we as parents and as also significant adults to children whom we are minding, we need to be very careful what we do. Because our children are watching all the time. So the best way to teach is to teach by example. When my son first learned how to drive, I saw my husband in him, Oh my goodness. Had to correct all those things. Why? You're ferrying your children to school, to tuition, to whatever. Your child is watching how you drive. So if you don't give way, when your child drives, he also wouldn't give way to pedestrians and so on. You will see that being demonstrated. And especially how you speak on the phone, Especially those people with authority, they speak on the phone, they scold people and so on. The child picks up. I watched my neighbor's children grow up. My neighbor at the back in my former house, they were always quarreling. So I watched them, as the child. First, the children were really tiny. They were babies. And through the years, when the children could speak, they were speaking exactly like the parents. With all the harsh words, the rude words, scolding each other, exactly like the parents. So it's very easy for an outsider to watch this happening, But when it's happening to ourselves, we need someone to tell us. So that's where grandparents come in. Yes? That could be due to pampering. Could be. I say could be only. It could be due to pampering. It could be. I don't know whether it helps. My 2 children are not spendthrift. Because we have never been spendthrift, but my 2 children are not spendthrift. So, I don't know where we went right or where we went wrong or whatever it is. You need to examine, that family will need to examine why their children are so spendthrift. Is it because of pampering? What I noticed, because I deal with Gen Y all the time, I deal with 18-year-olds. I see them through until their 20s in my line of work. I noticed, I called it the maid syndrome. When the child is badly behaved, I will ask them, did you have a maid at home? Yes. The answer is always yes. So what I think is this, It's not that the maid is bad, no. The maid is not bad. The maids are very good. But the child is so used to directing the maid to do things, and the maid pampers the child sometimes because, maids, right? They want to keep their job, right? And then sometimes parents also treat the maids badly, and say, you serve my child. So everything is done for the child. So they tend to have that attitude, where everything is done for me. And do you know the students that I get, they don't even know simple courtesies like thank you, please, good morning, sorry I'm late. They don't even know these things. You have to teach them. They don't know that they're supposed to be punctual. They don't even know how to say sorry. They don't even know how to say please. Like they want something, they just put up their hand. Do number 2, please. No, sorry, no please. They forget the please. The please comes automatically to us, They just say, number 2. Then you tell them, please. What? They don't know. They don't know. Whereas, I don't know whether you had this in school. In school, when we pass by a teacher, we say good morning, and the teacher will say, good morning who? Right? And then you say, oh, good morning, Mrs. Wong, something like that. We were taught like that in school, But these children are not taught. So they don't know. And the parents have no time to teach them because the parents are busy working. So some of them are literally brought up by maids. Again, not that maids are bad. But maids won't teach you courtesy, manners. Maids won't teach you that. Maids will serve the child. And in that way, they are pampered. And parents make up for it because parents think, I don't have enough time for my child, so they buy things for them. That teaches the child to be spendthrift. I can get whatever I want. A lot of parents make up for lack of time, lack of attention by buying them things. Oh, you want the latest iPad? You want the latest phone? You can have. They think that is a way of compensating for the lack of time. That's why you get this whole generation that is different. My friend in Singapore, she is quite high ranking in her company. She mentors Gen Y. This is a huge problem. This Gen Y is a huge problem in Singapore. They are pampered. They're spoiled rotten, in other words, in Singapore. They're totally spoiled rotten. They do not work hard. They don't know the value of working hard anymore. They expect everything to be served to them, given to them. And part of the reason is parents. Both parents work. No more time for the children. They have enough money to employ a maid. They employ 2 maids. So the maids look after them. Yes. Sorry? Oh, to Gen Y. Okay, Gen Y already at Gen Y level, she suggested, because she did a whole study on this, there are 3 things that you need to tell the Gen Y. Let me see if I remember. Number 1, you are not special. You tell the Gen Y, you are not special. You got to work hard just like anybody else. A lot of Gen Y think they're special. Because the parents tell them, oh, you're very special. Whereas when we were small, our parents never did all this nonsense with us, like, oh, you're a special child. No, right? You work hard just like anybody else, right? But this Gen Y are pampered, So the parents make up for it and tell them, oh, you're very special. So they grow up thinking that they're special and they deserve everything. They don't. So you take the illusion and the delusion out of their heads. You are not special. You better work hard. That's the first thing that Singaporean Gen Ys have to learn, number 1. Number 2, there's just 3 things that she mentioned. I can't remember. 1 is you're not special. 1 is do not envy other people. Gen Y always envy other people. They envy other people. Other people who are doing better than them, they envy. So envy is a problem with Singaporean Generation Y. I don't know whether it applies to Malaysian or not. They envy other people. 1 is you're not special. 1 is do not envy. I can't remember the third one. I can't remember. You email me, I'll just give you the study. I can't remember the third one, sorry. Yeah. So that is Singapore, but whether it's applicable here or not, I wouldn't know. So the first two, I will always go back to teaching by example. That's the best way to teach children what is right, what is wrong. Number 3, provide education and help choose profession. Provide education, 2 levels of education. One is, of course, the academic education, which is necessary, because whatever it is, you still need that piece of cert to get a decent job. Education. The other education is, of course, moral education, which starts from young. And it's the duty of parents, Otherwise, the children end up not even knowing how to say thank you. They learn a lot of things because of this maid syndrome. See, some of them hardly see their parents, Before they open their eyes, both parents have gone to work because of the Federal Highway jam. They've gone to work. They don't see their parents. By the time the parents come home, they're asleep. So they probably spend the first few years of their lives living like that, 5 days of not even seeing their parents. Maybe weekend they see their parents, but some parents even work through weekend, So can you imagine what it's like? No time with the parents at all. Alright, so there's moral education and there's the academic education. Now I need to stress on academic education. Why? Because I'm from the academic field. And I've seen students being forced by their parents to enter a certain profession because the parents want so. So in particular, there was this girl who was brilliant. I had this student, this girl, Bank Negara scholar, brilliant. Bank Negara gives how many scholarships? 1. She won it. 1. She got the scholarship, so she's brilliant. Her parents, highly educated, forced her to become an actuary. Actuarial science is the in thing nowadays. Everybody wants to be an actuary because it's big money. So she's brilliant. She's straight A's, so she can do well in anything. However, what the parents failed to do is to realize that she does not want to be an actuary. She has the aptitude to be an actuary, but she doesn't want. That's not her interest. So she used to cry in class. She was in my class because I teach advanced calculus. Actuarial science students have to do calculus. She's in my class. She used to cry. I don't want to do this. I don't want to be an actuary. So the college called her parents to come for counseling. Counsel the parents. This is where counseling failed. Because I think the father is a medical doctor. The mother is a teacher or something. Both highly educated, and they just come and say, she doesn't know anything better. We know what's good for her. Come on, your child is brilliant, Your child is straight A's and you say your child doesn't know anything. The child has no say, And I asked her, I said, what do you actually want to do? She said, I want to be a journalist. So why not let her be a journalist, right? A journalist is an honest living. You can make a living as a journalist in this country. I mean, of course, if your child says, no, I want to be a street artist in Pasar Seni, then of course you say, can I advise you to at least go get a proper profession first, then you can be a street artist on weekends, right? Help choose profession. Help choose profession. And then I've seen parents who practically drag the child to college and say, and keeps ridiculing the child non-stop. You see you're useless. You see oh my goodness, comparing the child with others. Worse, comparing the child with a sibling. Yes. Well, I cannot tell. My college is going to, no way I can tell. It's recorded, So, I've seen parents do that. They scold the child right in front of the counselors and so on. You see you're useless. That is so damaging. Psychologically, that is so damaging to the child. Every child has his or her aptitude. They can do well in certain fields in life. I think our job as parents is to direct them to find out where their aptitude is, to find out where their talent is. Every child has some sort of talent, Find out where it is and guide them accordingly to make good use of the skill, the talent, the aptitude to get a job that gives them an honest living. I think that is our job as parents. Yes, brother. Yes, you wanted to ask something. The parents. Some lah. Some parents not all parents are like that. Yeah. Yeah. Uh-huh. 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 To decide for your child. Yep. I think the best people is the parents. It's actually the parents, Because, you see, if you bring a child to me, I don't even know the child. You bring a child to me, I cannot do anything. I don't know the child. So nowadays, we have these psychological tests. The child can go through those tests, and then the test will reveal the child's aptitude, in which field the child is best. So that is one way. And colleges have it. You can sit for the test, and then the test will tell you, okay, you're best suited for this kind of profession. Now, are you interested? Still have to tell the child, are you interested? Ask the child, are you interested? From the test, it shows that your skills, your affinity is towards this, your inclination is towards this. Are you interested? If the child says, yeah, I'm interested, now that's good. That's good. Right? That's one way. Yes. Uh-huh. Yeah, they have this test. Yes. Yes, yes. Uh, 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 uh. Yeah, yeah. You can't rely 100% on this. That's why there's so many factors involved. So I say the parents knows best. But the parents must have the children's best interest at heart. So the self mustn't be there, Like, for example, this girl I was telling you about, I think the two parents just want it for themselves, I want a child to be an actuary. Like my cousin was a doctor. And why was he a doctor? The father pushed him to be a doctor. My uncle is a doctor. My uncle wanted one child to carry on the lineage. So he wanted one child to be the doctor. So he chose his brightest son and pushed him to become a doctor without actually realizing that the son doesn't want to be a doctor. So at Form 3, they had plenty of money. So at Form 3, after he finished Form 3, they carted him off to Australia and geared him totally for medical school. He's brilliant. My cousin is brilliant. Academically brilliant. So he qualified, forced him to go to medical school. Now, he didn't want to be a doctor, but his parents wouldn't take no for an answer. So he was forced to go to medical school. After he went to medical school, that's when all the problems began. He started failing. So this brilliant child started failing in medical school because he didn't want to be a doctor. So instead of taking 6 years, he took 8 years because he had to refer, repeat, and so on. So he qualified. When he qualified, he came back to Singapore. He served as a doctor because you've got your MBBS, right? So what else do? You got your MBBS already. You are a qualified doctor. So he served as a doctor, and he hated it so much. He was so miserable. He hated it until finally he gave the cert back to his father and said, I've done this for you. I'm going back to university to study physics because that's what I like. You see, he went back to university. He came back to university in Malaya. He went straight to year 2, exemption now because he got an MBBS, right? Exempted from year 1. He went through 3 years, got an honors degree in physics, came out and wrote physics books. And that's all he wanted to do. He just wanted to write physics books. Yes. Sandra is saying no. Assessment does not. Mm, 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 mm. Not always, unfortunately. Yeah, most parents would have. Mm, mm, mm. They're not. They're not. Mm. Yes. That's why you need counseling. This is counselors actually help, school counselors, college counselors. You get a compassionate counselor who puts his or her heart into the job. That's where a counselor can come in and help the parents. Counselors are trained. Provided counselors are properly trained. I'm not a counselor, so I wouldn't even dare counsel a child, no. I'm not trained to counsel a child in this area, no. I'm not trained. But they are trained counselors. That's where you need their help. If you as a parent think that you cannot do the best for your child, you get someone else to help. Mm. 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 Okay, you got to be realistic here. So say your child really likes art as in drawing. You go find out and see whether you can make an honest living doing this or not. You go find out. Maybe you can. Now let's say you found out and you can't. Not in this country. Not in this country. Then you have your options. Either you send the child overseas where he can make a living doing this, or you need to sit the child down and say, sorry, you have to opt for something related to your drawing skills, maybe technical drawing or something like that. Architecture, maybe, I'm just saying. And then you can do your drawing as a sideline, as a hobby. You need to be realistic with the child then. That's it. Right? So like, say my 2 children, quite interesting, because one child is academic and one child is not. My 2 children. So my daughter is academic. Academic as in study nut. The type who likes to study and can study. My son doesn't like to study at all. So as he was growing up, a lot of people chided me, you got a PhD, but your child is like that. I said, yeah, it's fine. Because to me, moral education is more important than academic education. There's more to life than the string of A's that you carry or whatever degree you carry to your name, I know that. So I let my son be. So he didn't do well academically. So every time report card day, it's like, the teachers will start complaining. Why your son always escapes from class and goes and plays basketball? Yeah, I know he does that. He wasn't interested in school. He wasn't interested in school. He wasn't interested in any of the academic subjects. So at 10 years old, in primary school, you can still let your child be, as long as he passes. He doesn't do too badly. He falls into the average. I'm okay. So I never pushed him because he's no interest there, even in primary school. So maybe in secondary school he'll pick up, I wouldn't know. But at 10 years old, he declared that he wanted to be a pilot. A 10-year-old child can tell you anything, right? They want to be astronauts. They want to be president of America. He declared that he wanted to be a pilot. Now, this so happened, he got influenced by the father because my husband's a pilot. So there's some parental influence there, He declared he wanted to be a pilot. So we took it. We said, okay, you want to be a pilot? Then I asked my husband, does he have the aptitude? My husband said he has the aptitude, demonstrated even at 10 years old. You know why? He's very good at PlayStation. He's very, very good at PlayStation. And I'm talking very good, His timing and everything. So what does he have? He has that coordination. His coordination is very good. His reflexes is very fast, even at 10 years old. So he said he wants to be a pilot. And then he's no good academically. So as long as he passes his exams, he's okay there, let him be. So we let him be, play a PlayStation. So we let him play PlayStation. And he never lost the skill, He was really good, very coordinated. So by the time he reached Form 3, he did okay. He reached Form 4. We asked him again, are you sure this is what you want to do? Are you sure? At that time he's 16, right? He can think a bit better, right? You know the risks of being a pilot. You'll be away from home. All these things. You see your own father, there are health risks. There are health risks, A lot of pilots, they will have headaches and so on because of radiation, all these things. You know all these things. And yet that's what you want to do. He says, yes, that's what I want to do. That's the only thing he wanted to do. So what choice do you have? When your child tells you that's the only thing he wants to do. So you got to guide him. And being a pilot is not dishonest living. It's honest living. And you can make a living in this country. In fact, you make good living in this country. You're paid very well. So we guided him. And we told him, look, you want to be a pilot, we can sponsor you to flying school. But you need credits in 4 subjects. Otherwise, you don't qualify. So you need credits in English, physics, maths, and maths. So he studied physics, English, maths, and maths. He studied at SPM. He got 4 A's only in English, maths, physics, and maths. The rest he got credits. Things like sejarah and all that, chemistry, he only got credits. So he only studied 4. These 4, he studied everything, but he got A's. He got distinctions, A1s, in these 4 subjects. So we sent him to flying school. Now the thing is, throughout 11 years of schooling, I have never heard any teacher praise my child, Because academically, he's only average. I've only heard teachers complaining about my son running off to the canteen, going to play basketball while class is in session, and you ask him why. He says, it's boring. So he escapes to the basketball court, he plays basketball, and so on. When he went to flying school, that's the first time ever he shone. So late bloomer, very late, bloom at 18 years. He found his niche in life. So sometimes your child don't want to do well in school, doesn't mean won't do well in life, Just don't have the niche. And our school system is so academic. You don't bring out the talent in the child, And if we as parents did not notice that he's so well coordinated, he might be doing engineering or something now and hating it. Because his aptitude is there, the coordination. His aptitude is there. So when he went there, he qualified. He came out, he got a job immediately with an airline. He's with Air Asia. Only 3 people had jobs, The rest all didn't qualify. He qualified. So first time in my life, I hear people praising my son. And then after he got in as a pilot, that's when he really, really shone. Because he's doing what he likes. He's doing he's in an area where his aptitude can be put to full use. And he was roped into the technical team to write manuals for airports and so on and so forth. You start to fly, literally, when you're put in a field where your interest is there, the passion is there. So sometimes when parents are so worried about their children, I tell them, you watch your child. You just watch your child and try. You as a parent would know best because you spend time with your child. You need to equip yourself with some knowledge also. So you need to be able to identify where your child's strengths are and guide your child accordingly. That's one child. My daughter is totally different. My daughter can study, not absolutely brilliant, can study. And in Malaysia, if you can study, you can get a string of A's already. So she can study, she's hardworking. And even up to Form 5, you ask her, what do you want to do? Don't know. The typical Gen Y answer is, don't know. They just shrug their shoulders, don't know. So since you don't know what you want to do, as a parent, I'm going to look at where your aptitude is. So I will base it on where her strengths are. And her strengths, none of my children are good in maths. They're not. And it's okay. Her strength is in bio and chem. She's good in bio and chem. She's not very good in physics. She's not very good in maths, but good in bio and chem. So of course the medical sciences come in first, bio and chem. What do you want to do anything in this medical science? Do you want to be a doctor? She says, no, absolutely not. Okay, then we scaled it down to pharmacy. Because in Malaysia, pharmacists can still make a good living. They're still needed, pharmacists, and you can branch off to a lot of things. From pharmacy, you can branch off to a lot of things. So you ask her, what about pharmacy? You need to study a lot of chemistry, organic chemistry. Are you prepared to do that? Okay lah. The typical Gen Y answer. Okay lah, that's it. So she went into pharmacy, she went through A-levels, then she went to university, she studied pharmacy. I still did not know whether I chose the right one for her, I still didn't know. But karma has a way of working out such that everything comes in right, because I suppose your intention matters. Because you're doing everything in the best interest of the child and everything just worked out right. So after she came out, she practiced as a pharmacy. That's when I saw that it was very suited to her character. Why? She's very patient with people. So when you're at the front lines in pharmacy, like now she's serving in a hospital in Kunak, Sabah, which is where the Zulus attacked. You know, when the Zulus attacked, she was there. She was at the hospital and we were so worried and she wasn't worried. She says, don't worry, I'm fine. So the Zulus even sent a threat to the hospital. You know. And she was there and we were worried sick, but she wasn't worried. So she has to serve what kind of people? Illegal immigrants, very, very old people, uneducated people, and so on. And I found that she has the patience. There's a lot of compassion in her. Even when she was serving in the hospital in Selayang here, all kinds of people come, and she can take it. People scold her, she can take it, that kind of thing. So, she's suitable for the profession somehow. So we kind of made the right choice for her. So, we can just do our best for our children. Okay? Then after a while, if it's the wrong choice, your child will know how to switch. Like my brother became an engineer first, found out that he didn't like it. Then he became an IT systems analyst, found out he didn't like it. And all his life he's been a science student. You know, when you're very science inclined, you'll be very science all the way, right? Very, very science type of student. Swore that economics is stupid. And he will never study it. And now he's got a PhD in e-commerce. So you see, people change, And when they change, it's okay to go back to school and study again. So he went from what? Civil engineering to IT to economics. Something that he swore he'll never do. So that's life. We endure change all the time. We experience change. Okay? So, provide education, help choose profession. Help only. Yes. Never compare with the sibling. It's very damaging. Sometimes you have 2 children, you have 3 children. One is brilliant. The other one is okay. One is totally hopeless. In studies, that is. Never compare. Always highlight the strengths. It's very damaging. I had a friend my age. Her sister was brilliant. And she's just so-so. And all her life she had to endure people praising her sister and ridiculing her. And it's very damaging for her. Don't compare. Highlight. Put your child in the best possible light. A little praise doesn't do any harm. Praise in the right way can be very positive. Very good for the child's self-esteem. Don't overpraise. Don't overpraise. When you praise, it has to be sincere. It has to be honest. Specific. So if your child didn't do well in certain things, don't say your child did well there. Don't give this false illusion to your child. That's the problem with Singaporean Gen Y. They've been told that they're so special, they've been put on a pedestal, they think they belong there when they don't. Some of them are just pure rubbish. But they've been put up there. Okay? This comparing with sibling is really bad. Don't do that. As a parent, don't do that. Even when your child misbehaves and say, you see your sister is so good, very damaging. It doesn't do any good, It doesn't do any good because the child will learn, oh, you love my sister more. You don't love me. You only see everything bad in me. It's damaging. Okay? So harsh criticism is very damaging. So there's a difference between criticism and critique. Critique is positive. Critique is when you say that is wrong, but you offer an option. You give an option. You do it this way. You teach the child how to do it correctly. So you don't say it's wrong, it's bad, it's wrong, it's bad, but you say do it this way. Why don't you do it this way? So you offer an option. That is critique. So critique is positive. Criticize is negative. Okay? Right. Number 4, advice in choosing partner. Advice only, Advice only. We cannot interfere too much because it's their life. So we can advise. Right? I think we all know those of us who have been through there, we also don't want our parents to interfere too much, right? We will welcome our parents' advice. So you can advise. And what if your child wants to marry a person of another faith, another religion? Are you okay with that? If you're okay with that, then that is good. But if you're not okay with that, then it's going to be a big problem. Yeah. Okay, right. The 5th one, hand over inheritance at proper time. So, there are 2 ways of looking at this. What is the inheritance? What is the inheritance that you want to give your child? What do you want your child to inherit from you? I remember my mother used to tell me, when we were young, I didn't come from a rich family, I came from a just so-so family. My mother used to say to us, I only want 2 things from you. My mother used to tell us. My mother was a school teacher, so she only wanted 2 things from us. Number 1, study hard. Number 2, always behave yourself. Only 2 things. And my mother used to say, I don't want a lot of money from you next time. You don't have to go and earn a lot of money and give me money. I don't want that. I just want you to study hard, which is the truth, because at that time, you know, right, baby boomer generation, you need to study hard in order to make good in life. And number 2, behave yourself. That's only 2 things. So, what do you want your child to inherit from you? What is the inheritance that you want to give your child? You want your child to inherit all your good values, right? That's family tradition, you know. I think you want your child to inherit all the good values from your family. So you hand over this inheritance at the proper time. All the good values. So you should be educating your child all the time. That's one. Then you talk about physical inheritance. You know, your assets and so on. This one is up to the family. When they want to pass down the assets or not. When they want to put joint names and so on. Use wisdom. You got to use your wisdom here. Nowadays, lawyers will tell you, don't hand over yet. Right? Don't hand over yet. Because sometimes you trust your children. But what about their spouse? You know, how much can you trust there? And sometimes it's very pitiful when you have these aged parents being driven away from home, being cast away in a hospital. Do you know in Klang Hospital, they have parent dumping? In Klang Hospital, they have parent dumping. People bring their aged parents to the hospital, just get them registered, admitted, and never claim back the parents. And the parents live their entire lives in the hospital. It's called parent dumping. It happens. That is sad. And sometimes the parents have nothing to their name anymore because everything has been signed over. So be wise, if you have children, be wise. It could be karma, of course. Of course, it could be karma, you know. Okay, so these are duties of parents, just 5. And the best way to teach is, of course, by example. That's my son when he was young. It's a picture taken where he was helping me wrap these gifts for an orphanage. And that's my daughter with my mother. My mother was living with us for 5 years when my children were young. That's my daughter. My mother used to chant with the beads every night. And my daughter would just sit there, take her beads and chant also. So it's teaching by example, you know. Children will follow. Because as elders, we are very significant to them. Despite whatever you think you're not significant to your child, you are very significant to your child. You know. They look up to you. So whatever you do, they do. They will follow. Okay? Right. Do you remember Yasmin Ahmad? She's the one who used to come up with the Petronas Hari Raya Chinese New Year advertisements, right? They're always very poignant, very touching, right? She passed away. Right. There was one Hari Raya where she came up with this little story. It shows a wealthy couple with an old father and a young child. And they were sitting at a dinner table. They were eating. So you have this couple, the child, very young boy, and the grandfather, really old. So they were eating. And as with old people, when they eat, they're a bit sloppy, right? So yeah, it spills and started belching, gas, started belching and so on. Happens to us when we age. It will come. So the daughter found it very disgusting. And he told the father, from now onwards, you eat there in a separate room. So there was a wooden table there. And that's where the cat eats. So you eat there separately. We will eat here, you will eat there. And old people do not complain, They come to a certain age where they just accept everything. They have no energy to complain anymore. They don't want to fight with anyone. They're like thankful that I can stay here and I have food and you feed me, I will go and eat there. They do not complain anymore. So the father went and eat there. And the little boy, after watching for a few days, told the parents, you must keep this table. Because next time when you are old, I will put you there. You find this story told in different versions. Even you have the Buddhist version, you have the different versions. So That is a lesson to be learned, Our children are watching us all the time. Okay, just talking about praise just now. I think it's very important that parents praise their child. But you must know the personality of your child. For example, my daughter hates being praised. My daughter, due to something in her personality, she hates being praised. So you cannot praise her directly because she doesn't like it. She cannot take praise. But most children can take praise. So you got to know. You got to know the child very well and how to handle the child. And who knows best? Parents. Sometimes kindergarten teachers, not properly trained, they do a lot of damage to the child. You see, for example, my daughter is extremely strong-willed. You can call it stubborn, negatively. You can call it strong-willed, positively. Yeah. Very, very strong-willed and had a mind of her own, even from very, very young, she will decide what she wants to do. She's very strong-willed. And then I taught her. And she was speaking proper English. I taught her manners and all these things. She knew all these things. When she went to kindergarten, which is around 4 years old nowadays, 4 years old, we send her to kindergarten, right? She went to kindergarten, she had this real dictator-like headmistress, This headmistress who, the old school mom type, And she would dictate to every child. Say good morning. Even before the child can say anything, she'll go, say good morning. What must you say after this? Thank you. What must you say after this, please? That kind of thing. Children nowadays don't like it. It doesn't work anymore, especially to a strong-willed child. You know what my daughter did? She retaliated. She refused to greet the headmistress. So the headmistress complained to me. Your child is very rude. Oh, okay. Why? She refused to say good morning to me. Okay. I can never make my child say good morning to the headmistress. You know why? She does not respect the headmistress. Because the headmistress didn't respect her. So sometimes you're dealing with a strong-willed child like that, And the only way to make the child behave is to use the soft approach. That's why I say children don't like to be dictated to, They don't like it anymore because they're smart. And probably the parents have taught them well. So certain children, you can use this method. Certain children, you can't. You just can't. You just turn and retaliate and do something else. And there you're wondering why your child is being difficult. Maybe it's because of wrong technique. Parents, wrong technique. Childminders, wrong technique. Teachers, wrong technique. It could be that, So it's tricky business there. Right? So praising your child is good, but praise specifically. Alright? And remember this, I think what Albert Einstein says here is so apt. Everyone is a genius. Everyone is a genius. But if you judge a fish on its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing it is stupid. You know what it means, right? Pushing a child to do something which he or she has no aptitude for. Then the child will think, I'm stupid, I just can't do that. That's why I say significant others, what they say is very important. I tell you my own story. See, when I was young, I told you that I didn't come from a rich family. I came from humble beginnings. And my mother always said that to us. My mother always said this, behave yourself, study hard. Study hard, she said, because she doesn't want the family members, the extended family, to look down on us. You know why? Because they always look down on my mother. My mother was always looked down upon, because I come from a family where there are doctors and dentists and so on, So my mother was considered the least qualified among the whole extended family. So my mother always had this thing in her and said, you all got to, live up to our family name and blah, 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 all these things. So I had that ingrained in me right from young. The Chinese word 张黑? The Chinese word 张黑? My mother always ingrained that in us, Whether it's good or bad, I wouldn't know. What it means is, don't let me down. That's what it means, that Chinese word, It's hard to translate, right, that Chinese word. It means don't let us down, that word, My mother drummed that into us. When I went to year 1, which is standard 1, at that time it was called standard 1, I come from a small town in Kampar. Have you heard of Kampar? I come from ACS Kampar, actually. You too, ACS Kampar. What year? 64, 70. I went to standard 1 in 70. I'm 50 years old. So, I went to year 1. And in Kampa, there are a lot of rich people. Tin miners' children, doctors' children, engineers' children. A lot of rich people in Kampa. And usually you can tell whether the child comes from a rich family or not, by the size of the child. Especially Chinese families, eat, and be prosperous, right? So, a chubby child usually indicates that he or she comes from a wealthy family, eat well. And as a child, I was very thin. I was stick thin. Very, very thin as a child, It's not that my parents didn't feed me. They fed me well, but I just didn't put on weight, so I was really thin. And then when you look at me, this one's sure from poor family, so thin, right? So, I went to year 1. And in that class, the teacher put us in 4 rows, according to size. So I saw all those chubby and fair children were in the first row, and I was put in the last row with all the thin children, So, and you know what the teacher said? This was year 1 when I was 6+. I'm 50 years old and I can still remember. You see how significant it is? So significant, what your teacher says. The teacher announced to the whole class, all the smart children are in row A. So all the wealthy children, the fat, chubby, wealthy children, they're all in row A. This last row is all the stupid children. So I was in the stupid row, And because of what my mother drummed into me, Zhang He, do not let me down. My mother always said that, You must not let me down, so you must study hard. My mother used that psychology on us. Whether it's good or bad, I don't know. I'm just saying how significant it is, what your parents say, what your teachers say. So I was put in the last row there, and I was termed stupid, Then I remember, I cannot let my mother down, right? I cannot let my mother down. That made me study so hard. Yes, it was year 1. I studied so hard to make sure I will show the teacher that I'm not stupid. So I have to thank the teacher, I really have to thank the teacher for giving me a start like that, although it's like a blessing in disguise. So I studied so hard, I got first in class in the June exams. I got first in class, and she transferred me to the smart row. Yeah, Zhang He. And until today, she remembers me. The teacher remembers me. She's still alive. She still remembers me. I'm shocked, but she remembers me. I don't know what she remembers about me, but she remembers me. So, don't want to tell. Don't want to tell, not nice. You see, the thing is, what people say to you, if my mother hadn't told me that to Zhang He, not to let me down, Zhang He means not to let me down. It's a Chinese word. The self-fulfilling prophecy might have happened. And I would believe that I'm stupid. I would believe that I'm stupid and I'm not capable of going to the smart row because the teacher says I'm stupid. And when I first came out to teach, I was put in a certain school in PJ where all newbie teachers will be put in the last class. We have to handle the last class. We cannot handle the best classes because the senior teachers want to teach the best. You get the number of A's or whatever your record, right? I was put in 5 Arts 3, 4 Arts 3, last class. I came out at 25. I was put in the last class, and that's where everything you've learned, they train you to be a teacher, you make use of it. So I had a bunch of students who were bordering on being gangsters. 4 Arts 3. I was put as form teacher of 4 Arts 3. So I had to teach this bunch of children science, and they're in arts class, and they can't even write properly. They cannot even write properly at form 4. You know what I discovered? I discovered they were good children, They were good children. They're all victims of the school system. They were always in the last class. So they do not come from educated homes, but they are good children. So I started telling them, I started gearing them and bringing out the best in them, Whatever they're good in, whenever there's a discipline case, my children will be hauled up. My students will be hauled up. First to suspect must be that class. Who does naughty things? That class. Public caning, that class. So I used to stand up for them. I stand up for them. I'll speak to the discipline master. Do you have proof that it's my student? I was simply hauling up my student. So I defended them, And they appreciated that. Because I know they're good children. I see them every day, So I know them. They're good children. So it turned out I guided them through 2 years as a young teacher, 2 years, from 4, from 5. When they finished from 5, no, I did not get a string of A's. This is not a fairy tale. This is real life. I got 4 A's from that class, which is good, I got 4 A's from that class for science. And after that, they made good in life. They didn't do well in the SPM. They're too far gone. Sorry, they're victims of the school system. At 17 years old, I cannot do anything anymore academically. But I can bring out the best in them. And the best in them is they still had values. They can become honest. They can be hardworking. So they ended up doing small businesses. And from there, they did well. They did well in life. By doing well, I mean honest living. You can make a living, you don't have to borrow money, that's good, right? They did well in life. So they still remember. They still remember, that sort of thing. So, this is very apt, When you judge a fish according to its ability to climb a tree, of course the fish will think it's stupid. They cannot do that. So why force them to do that? Okay, right. How to reprimand, how to praise. Reprimand the wrong action and not the person. So when people say to a child, you're a bad child, you're a bad boy, that's damaging. So it's not the boy that's bad, but the action. What you did was wrong. What you did was bad. Yeah, what you did was bad. But you are not bad. You don't have to be bad. But you can do right. So critique. Offer an option. Next time, do it this way. And explain why. Because children are very smart nowadays. So you need to explain to them why. Why you shouldn't hit back that child. When my son was about 4 years old, he went to the playground. And then he saw this action figure. These toys, these little toys. He brought it back. At 4 years old. He brought it back. So I know it's not his toy. So I asked him, where do you find this? At the playground. On the ground. I said, it's not yours, right? It's not yours. There's no point teaching a 4-year-old child the second precept of stealing and all that. No, don't preach. So I asked him, I said, your own favorite toy? What if you brought it to the playground and then you accidentally dropped it? What would you do? So I'll run back to the playground to look for it, my favorite toy. So I said, this is probably some other child's favorite toy, So that child might be running to the playground to look for it. And if the child doesn't find it, if you're you, how would you feel? You know what he did? He went back to the playground and put back the toy. Children are very smart. So you reason with them, even at 4 years, they can understand. And you will get the right action out of them. So I did it without telling him, you better go there and put back. I didn't even tell him that, I just gave him, you just put yourself in another person's shoe, but not even in that kind of language, in a language that the child can understand. What if you lost your favorite toy, you dropped it in the playground? This is another boy's favorite toy. He ran there and put it back. See, there's a difference there. I would think this is the Buddhist way of teaching a child. At the same time, my friend had a child of the same age, the boy. So I was in a friend's house, in her house. Her son came back from the same playground with money. 1 ringgit. Very happy. I found, it's a Malay family. I found this money, very happy. The older sister is trained to teach this younger brother, So the older sister scolded him with bringing in the Quran and everything, scolded him, You know what will happen? This is stealing. This is bad. You know what will happen? You will go to hell. That's what their religion teaches them, Scolded the boy. The boy was crying and crying and crying and so scared. Then the sister said, you put it back. Yeah, the boy put it back. But you see the two difference there? You get the same action. The child returning the money, the child returning the toy. But 2 different methods. So again, which method do you want to employ? Which method will work for your child? It depends. Some children can be very difficult. Some children can be very difficult. You might have to use another approach. Not all approaches will work. So you need a repertoire of approaches. And you need to judge the personality of the child. Even my 2 children from the same family, brought up in the same way, personality-wise is so different. So that's where parenting skills come in. So every parent will have to judge and learn. Right? So praise effort, not intelligence. Praise the effort. For example, when you see the report card, the children bring back the report card, what do you look at? Look at the number of A's first? Or do you look at the improvement? C rate mine. Then why you get C here? Why you get D here? No. Or you see the improvement. Yeah. Yes. See the improvement. The same subject, last time D, now B. That's a big improvement. Praise that. Okay? So always see the positive. It matters. And praise sincerely and be specific, like what I said just now. So if your child doesn't deserve praise, don't simply praise. That again is no good. It gives false ego. It gives the child an illusion that he is good when he's not. So when there's no praise that is deserving, you don't have to praise. You only praise when it's deserving, be sincere and specific. Okay. This is a story I want to tell you. This is Arun Gandhi. Arun Gandhi is the grandchild of Mahatma Gandhi. Arun Gandhi tells this story from his teenage days. And he says this is a very significant moment in his life. Okay, what is this story? When he was about 16 or 17, he just had his driving license. So do you remember the time you had your driving license, especially boys? Ooh, you're so happy you can drive the family car, right? So his father had to go, they live in a village, and his father had to go to the town to attend a conference. So his father said, you can drive me to town. Happy love, right? Especially boys, right, can drive the family car. I allow you to drive me to town. You drop me off at the conference hall, and then you can go and enjoy yourself in town. But you make sure you come back and pick me up at 5 o'clock when the conference finishes. So Arun Gandhi did as he was told, as in he drove the father there, very happy, dropped the father there, and he went off to town. Now, when he went off to town, the father also told him, you send the car to the mechanic because the car needs repairs. So you drop the car off at the mechanic, then you can walk around town. Then you pick up the car and make sure you fetch me at 5 o'clock. So he did as he was told. He dropped the car off at the mechanic. He went around town enjoying himself. Then he came to a cinema and he wanted to watch a movie. He didn't check the time. So he went in to watch the movie. When he finished the movie and came out, it was past 5 o'clock. He's supposed to fetch his father at 5, right? So he was late. He ran to the mechanics. He picked up the car. He drove to the conference hall. By then it was 6 o'clock. 1 hour late. His father was standing calmly outside the conference hall. It was all empty. Everybody had left. So only the father left. And the father asked him calmly, why were you late? For some reason, Arun Gandhi was afraid to tell the truth. So he lied. He said the car was delayed at the mechanics. But he didn't know the father was smarter. The father had already called the mechanic. So the father knew he was lying. Right? So what would you do if you are the parent? You just caught the child lying, the 16-year-old lying. You know he's lying. He's telling a lie. What would you do? So typically parents would respond in all kinds of different ways, right? Now Arun Gandhi's father, being the son of Mahatma Gandhi, had a lot of wisdom. And he knew this child well. And you know how he responded? He just told the child calmly. He said, I'm not going to get into your car. I'm going to walk back. I want to walk back because I want to spend this time reflecting on where I went wrong in bringing you up, such that you dare not even tell me the truth. I must have done something wrong. And he started walking. That struck him, That really struck him, because by telling a lie, he has hurt his father so much. His father probably never went wrong in bringing him up. If his father had gone wrong, this kind of thought wouldn't work on him, right? His father didn't go wrong, but the father wanted to just hit him that way, So that's what the father said. I must have done something very wrong in bringing you up. So I'm going to walk home and reflect on where I had gone wrong. So he walked for 5 hours back to the village. In his court shoes, in his lounge suit, he walked through unlit roads. He walked, What did Arun Gandhi do? Arun Gandhi trailed his father slowly to make sure his father would be safe. So you're talking about a good boy here, huh? He trailed his father, and he said those 5 hours he felt so miserable. He swore to himself he will never do this to hurt his father again. He would never tell a lie. And as he reflects back, you see some of these moments are so significant in our lives. As he reflects back, he said this learning opportunity is so powerful, so much more powerful than if his father had punished him or grounded him or something. He said it's so powerful. And he calls it non-violent parenting. So his father had taught him never to lie again by just this powerful method, which is totally non-violent. The father didn't raise his voice. The father didn't even punish him. But that 5 hours was punishment enough. But you see, it doesn't work for every child. Don't try it on some children who say, you want to walk lah, I take the car and go somewhere else. So certain children won't work. It won't work. So if you don't have that bond with your child and you don't know the child well, don't think this is going to work on every child. It's not. That's why parents got to know their children. You got to know your child. So sometimes this works, sometimes no. Sometimes the cane might work. But the thing with the cane is this. If you have to use the cane as punishment, I'm not saying spare the rod and spoil the child. I'm not saying because some children are very difficult. If you have to use the cane, please make sure you do not cane in anger. If you have to cane, you have to cane. One stroke. Do not do it in anger. You make sure you're calm first and you tell the child, look, this is the rule. You have done something really naughty. Your punishment is I need to cane you. But you let the child know that it's because he has done something wrong. Do not do it in anger. That is very important. Because if you do it in anger, it's damaging. If you do it calmly, with the child understanding, the child will accept punishment, which is a good lesson in life. Because in real life, we get punished. So I don't agree with that school of thought where you never cane your child. Oh no, please, some children are really difficult. They only listen to the cane. Some children are very difficult. Then if you need to do it, you need to do it, but do it calmly. That's the rule. Don't do it in anger. Okay? Right. So that's not. Now let's talk about the generation gap. So we have the 60s, that's the generation gap. Then we have the 80s and we have now. So this generation gap is increasing, As we progress in society, it's increasing. Now, who is responsible for the generation gap? Who is responsible? Who can make a difference to narrow this generation gap? The parents. The children don't know anything. So it's the parents. So one thing that parents can do, even significant elders like us can do, is to find out what is interesting in their lives. You cannot use our music to interest them anymore. You go talk about Elvis Presley, they say, who? You play Elvis Presley, they say, so? They're from another generation. So if we force our interests down, shove it down their throats, it's not going to work. So we got to take an interest in what interests them. At least we got to find out what the iPad is about, what games they play, football if they're interested, who's the footballer. So we got to find out. That's the only way to still be a friend, to remain in your child's life. Otherwise, we are totally out of their lives. See this? Hi, sweetie, how was school today? You can read all about it on my blog, Dad. So your child's not going to tell you. Your child's not going to tell you how was school. She's going to write in a blog. So you want to know, you got to go read her blog. And then if the parents is not IT literate, some parents, they say, I don't know all this Facebook lah, this lah, that lah. It's not that you don't know, you don't want to find out. Go and find out, otherwise you're out of your child's life. So what's the latest in that? So when my children were growing up, it wasn't Facebook, it was Friendster. Friendster is out of the window now. Friendster is totally out. What Friendster? Nobody knows about Friendster now. So when they were into Friendster, I was into Friendster. They're into Facebook, I'm into Facebook. So at least whatever they say, so I know lah. At least I know a little bit about it. So you got to keep in touch. Parents got to do it. Otherwise, you just lose them. And they will belong to their own world, and we belong to our world, and we are wondering why there is a generation gap. And we start blaming society. We can narrow the generation gap. And I hear old people criticizing young people's music. Like when Michael Jackson passed away, the teenagers were crying, right? They were mourning Michael Jackson. And the older generation was just, what's so great about your Michael Jackson? Because we don't understand. We don't understand, The whole generation also cry. Yeah. Okay, so we cannot shove our idols down their throat anymore. We have to keep up. Now this is already outdated. This was 2 years ago. So all these people are already outdated. They are new idols now. So if you want to remain in your child's life, you got to take an interest in what interests him or her or them. Okay, and in the 60s, skirts were that long. In the 80s, it's shorter, and now it's very much shorter. So, again, same thing, you got to strike a balance. Material cost and all, that's why. So, you got to strike a balance, You cannot force the child to wear like that anymore, of course, But of course, this one is also not for the child's own good, especially when you go out, society is not safe and so on. So, you got to strike a balance. A balance is what's best. Okay? This saying, there are no bad children, only bad parents, I don't agree. Because sometimes you get the most wonderful parents who have done everything right with all good intentions and the child is still a monster. You have, right? Karma maybe. The child is still a monster. So I don't think we should blame parents for everything. Yes, some parents are at fault. Not all parents are at fault. Most parents have tried their best as far as they know. Parenting doesn't come with a manual. Dr. Spock's book does not always work. Dr. Benjamin Spock? Have you heard of Dr. Benjamin Spock? He wrote a lot of books on parenting. Do you know his son committed suicide? His own son committed suicide. So his son was probably an unhappy child. And yet he's the authority on parenting. So it doesn't come with a manual. It comes with your child. So you got to study your child. You got to know your child. And then you apply the Dhamma. You use compassion and wisdom and all this, and you just do your best. That's all. Nobody can fault you if you've done your best. And you must not fault yourself. And don't let a third party judge you either. No third party has any right to judge a parent. Because you don't live with them. Unless you live with them and you actually observe the parent abusing the child, then you can say something, But if you don't live with them, what can we say? We cannot say anything. Because we don't know their relationship. Okay, so that's about parents. They grow up very fast. So that's my son. That's my daughter. That's when they were young. Spend time with them. Otherwise, you're never going to get it back. I resigned from work to spend time with them. Only when my son went to year 1, I went back to work. So I gave up a lot of things. But that time spent, you can never get it back. So it's worth it. Okay, now relationship with our parents. Why are they called Brahmas of our hearts? Because the Buddha says in the suttas, there are 4 fields of merit. So when you do good to Buddhas, Arahants, mother and father, it's considered fields of merits. It's gratitude to parents. Okay? And they are Brahmas of our hearts because they practice the 4 Brahma Viharas. They will always have metta for us, goodwill, unconditionally. So even if you've been very nasty, you've done a lot of bad, your parents will still welcome you back. Most parents do, right? Most parents. They have karuna for us, which is empathy, especially when we are sick, when we are suffering. They wish they can take that suffering from us. I remember when my son had this really bad accident in his flying school. He didn't crash a plane. He rode a motorbike and fell on his face and smashed his face. He smashed his face at 17 years. And my son is very vain. The type who will look at the mirror all the time. He smashed his face. He lost 5 teeth. 5 teeth yanked out of his teeth due to the accident. He fell on a rocky path. So when we were on the way there to see him, when we first saw him, he was all bandaged up. Luckily, he was all bandaged up. We wouldn't have been able to recognize him. The picture you saw just now was after all the plastic surgery, Need plastic surgery to repair his face. So anyway, when I saw him that way, the first thing that came to my mind was, I wish I could exchange phases with him. That's how parents always feel. When you suffer, your parents wish they could take that suffering from you. I wish I could exchange faces with him. I would take all his suffering. Parents always feel like that for us. Parents always have the empathy for us. No matter how naughty we've been, they will always have the empathy. Altruistic joy is when we do well, they will rejoice. Which parent is ever jealous of the child? Which parent will say, you're doing better than me? No parent will be jealous. I don't think so. We always want our children to do better than us, right? We hope they'll do better than us. So whenever they do well, we rejoice. That's altruistic joy. Joy for somebody's success. And the introspection comes later when we lose our selflessness. We lose our selflessness. We are willing to let them go. So for example, these pictures tell you the 4 Brahma viharas that parents feel for their child. Number 1 is the unconditional love we have for our child. Then when our child is sick, we wish we could take the suffering away, right? And then mudita is when they do well. It doesn't have to be in academic field. It can be anything. When they do well, we feel their joy. And finally, when they tell us, Mommy, Daddy, I'm migrating to Australia and not coming back. That sort of thing, we let them go. We don't hold them back and say, no, you cannot go. We let them go with all our blessings. There's no self there, You just want them to be happy. Go. Right? Okay? So, in the suttas, you will find everywhere the Buddha talking about our parents being Brahmas, first teachers, they're worthy of gifts and so on. The whole idea is to tell us that we need to be grateful to our parents for bringing us up. We're talking about responsible parents here. They're also irresponsible parents, right? So responsible parents who have done their best to bring us up, I think most of our parents fall in that category. The Buddha tells us to be grateful. To be grateful to them. So it says here, not supporting mother and father who are old and past their youth is a cause of one's downfall. Even if you carry your parents on your shoulders for 100 years, you cannot repay them for what they have done for us. Responsible parents. Right? Okay, so it says the same thing here. Support of mother and father is a blessing and so on and so forth. Right. Duties of children. Support your parents in whatever way where they need support. Okay? Help them in their business and work. Very relevant. If you can help them in their business and work, that would be good. Taking over the family business, if you can. Keep the family tradition. Keeping family traditions that are good. Not family traditions that are bad. Keep the ones that are good. For example, in some families, Vesak, Chinese New Year, they do a lot of charity. Grandparents did that. Parents doing that now. We follow. It's a good tradition in the family. Something to be proud of. Make sure you're worthy of your inheritance. Like my mother telling me, behave yourself, study hard. I think I'm worthy of that inheritance. Right? Because I did that for her. Do charity in memory of your departed parents. So even if your parents are not here anymore, you can still do charity in their name. Now, doing charity in their name does not necessarily mean you have to cast the name in stone there on the wall. It doesn't mean that. How you do charity in their name, you do some sort of charity and you think of them. You just think of them. The name doesn't have to appear. But of course, it's nice to have the name appear, so a lot of people like to do in memory of so-and-so. That's fine. That's fine. Think of them. It's that thinking part that links you. If your parents are reborn as spirits, only if your parents are reborn as spirits. You can be reborn as heavenly beings, humans, spirits, animals, hell beings. 5 realms. Generalized, they don't break it up into all the components and so on. So if so happen, your parents or grandparents or aunties or uncles or anyone departed from your family is reborn as a spirit, the spirit world is linked to our world. They're very close to us. That's why some people say they can see ghosts. They are seeing the spirits. You can call them hungry ghosts, you can call them anything you want. They're seeing the spirits. Some people have the third eye, they can see the spirits. Most of us cannot. Thank goodness we can't, right? We'll be scared, right? Because we don't see them. So those who can see, they are not scared. They see them all the time. So they see spirits walking around, sitting here, maybe. You never know. So if they're in the spirit world, they're very closely linked to us. So whatever we feel, they can receive. So when you do charity in memory of them, they can receive the thought. And what happens is, you give them an opportunity to feel happy. Spirits don't get a chance to feel happy. They're born in a suffering realm. So you give them a chance to feel happy. So when you give them a chance to feel happy, they are practicing mudita. They're rejoicing with you. You do something good, right? Say, for example, you donate some money to build a temple, or you help an old person on a wheelchair cross the road. It can be something very small. You feed a stray dog. You've done something good, right? You think of your parents who are departed. Your parents receive that message and they rejoice at your good deed. They are practicing mudita. Practicing mudita is meritorious. So you give them a chance to practice mudita. That's the whole explanation. Okay? It's not like accounts, where you give some of your karma to your parents. No. Yes. No need already. They cannot receive anymore. It says so in the sutta. You don't know. That's why whenever you do dedication of merits, it's always to all beings, right? You can dedicate to your departed, your deceased relative. You can. Then you always end up with, may all beings be well and happy, right? So if your departed relative doesn't get it, other beings get it. Whoever that's close to you gets it. You won't know, right? It could be a relative from some previous life will receive. So whoever has that link with you will receive. That's why we always do. We don't stop at there, We always say, may all beings be well and happy, right? So it covers all. This relationship with deceased, it's very tricky, It's very complicated. So you cannot pinpoint, hey, I'm doing this only for my mother. No. Your mother might not need it. Your mother might be a heavenly being already and doesn't need these merits, right? So another one will get it. A past relative, that's why you say, idam me nyati nang hotu, sukita hontu nyata yo. You chant that? May all my relatives, right? Whoever that has been related to you. That chant is so significant. It actually explains everything, You are transferring merits. You call it transfer merits, share merits, whatever. It's just an English word. You are sharing your merits with your past relatives. What does relative mean? Nothing to do with surname and all that. It means whoever who has been related to you previously. Only these relatives can receive your thoughts. You try transferring something to Josh Bush doesn't know who you are. Cannot, right? But if you're someone really close to you, they kind of can sense, isn't it? Like your child and so on, they can sense. So that's why idam minyati nang hotu is to your relatives. Whoever who has been related to you previously is included. So you transfer. Maybe you were related in some previous life. Wouldn't know. If it's somebody who has absolutely no relationship with you, then probably cannot receive. But how do you know your great-grandparents were not related to you in some previous life? If you look at the sutta, somewhere it says, everyone has been our mother before, right? Because the rebirth, the cycles of rebirth is so long, endless. So the sutta says, everyone here has been your mother before. So you're related to everyone, in other words. Right? Okay, so that is what doing charity in memory of the departed means. That is what it means. Okay, now the greatest gift to your parents, as it says in the Katanu Sutta, is to bring them close to the Dhamma. Now this refers to especially parents who have never been close to the Dhamma before, but now in their old age, do you realize old people, some of them fear death, They know death is coming soon. They fear death. And this is the time they want to do a lot of good. For whatever reason, never mind their intentions, but they want to do a lot of good already. Give them a chance. When you say give them a chance, what does it mean? Say, for example, your parents are Christians. Take them to church. Please don't bring them to the temple if they're Christians. Don't shove it down their throat. Okay? So if they're Christians, bring them to church. Bring them somewhere where they can do a lot of good. If they have no money, they want to donate, give them the money so that they can have the money to donate. It makes them happy. So bring them close to the Dhamma doesn't mean bring them close to Buddhism. It means bring them close to doing good in the last part of their lives. Because everyone would want to be good, at that time. Because they know death is close. And everybody fears death in a certain way. Right? So bring them close to the Dhamma. Yes, brother. Is it possible to what? Uh-huh. Uh-huh. I don't think so. It sounds good lah. It sounds good. Oh, I'm doing this. Huh? Uh-huh. Uh-huh. I don't think so. I don't think so. I think what matters is you think of them. It makes us humans feel good that I'm doing something on behalf of my parents. We feel good. That's all. If you don't think of your parents, they're not going to receive it. You must think of them. Oh, alive. Okay, they're alive and you want to do what? Alive. And? Uh-huh. On behalf of them, they're not going to get anything. You are going to get it. The good deed comes from you, not from them. If you advise them to do, then it comes from them. If they do it willingly. You cannot do something on behalf of someone else when it comes to good deeds. Yes? Uh-huh. 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 Your parents will get to rejoice, which is mudita, which is good. You tell them about it. Uh-huh. 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 Okay. So your parents know. Your parents must know. They must know. Must know and rejoice. And be happy. If your parents are not happy about it, then it's counterproductive already. Then what's the point? Right? So, it becomes negative already. There's no point. So you better ask them, you want to do or not? You know, like yesterday was my father's birthday. My father is bedridden. He's suffering from dementia. So it was his birthday. And, you know, old people, sometimes they're demented, but they remember certain things, right? You know, they don't forget everything, you know. Their short-term memory is gone, but the long-term memory is there. So it was his birthday. Then all of us brought lunch there. We had lunch with him. I gave him an ang pao. Because old people, you know, although he cannot do anything with the money, you give it to him. So he was very happy. He was holding the ang pao. He was very happy. Sometimes second childhood, they behave like children again, right? Then he said he wants to donate the entire sum to charity on his own. He says he wants to give it to the animals. He kind of remember that I do charity for animals. He remembers certain things, you know. He says he wants to give the entire sum. So my mother said, why don't you take a bit of it to buy food for yourself, you know, to buy something? No. Very sure. Demented. Senile. Very sure. No. Whole thing to charity. So that's his wish. So we have to do it for him. It makes him happy. You know, if you're going to insist, no lah, you keep some. No. He already said that's what he wants. Do it for him. Okay? Right. Okay, some issues, old folks' home. Is it necessarily a bad thing? It may not be necessarily a bad thing if you don't have the resources to look after your aged parents who may require nursing care and so on. Then you may have to opt for this. I say may, if we don't have the resources to take care of them. For example, for economic reasons, husband and wife got to work. Don't have money to employ a maid. Don't have money to employ a nurse. Surely you're not going to leave your sickly parent at home unattended to, right? You have to send him for some medical care, some nursing care. So sometimes families opt for this and it's not for us to judge. We cannot judge. They're opting for the best reasons. Provided they're opting for the best reasons. There are also those who dump their parents there and do not visit ever. It's not for us to judge. So what I'm saying is, let's not judge harshly people who put their parents in a home, put their grandparents in a home. Although we can say, why can't you resign and look after your parents? For economic reasons, some people cannot. You know, there was a very famous Indian footballer from the Malaysian team. Chandra. What's his name? Chandran, right? M. Chandran, right? He gave up his job to look after his parents. His father. His father was bedridden. He gave up his job to look after his father. He can do that. But not everyone can do that. Okay? So it may not be a bad thing. May not be a bad thing. Okay. What about abusive and irresponsible parents? So we talk about gratitude, and so on. Look after your parents. Your parents are Brahmas. Some parents are clearly not Brahmas. They left. They left the family. Let's say a man, the husband, leaves the family totally, runs off with another woman, go womanizing, alcohol abuse, gambling, drug lord, everything, all the bad things that you can think about, and the mother brought up the children. And when the children are all successful, the father comes back. And that's your biological father. To me, personally, I don't care whether it's my biological father or someone else. Just give the person a chance to turn over a new leaf. Give the person a chance first. I would say do not stereotype him just because of his past. But of course, approach with wisdom. Always be wise about it. Give him a chance. Give him a chance. Not because he's your biological father, because he's a person who is deserving of a second chance. Give him a chance and see whether he changes or not. If he changes and he becomes good, isn't that good? Okay, so that would be the Buddhist approach, I would think. Not to stereotype a person. Angulimala, the bandit in the Buddha's lifetime, Angulimala, supposedly killed 990 people. Supposedly. I mean, of course, it's a story, right? And Indians tend to exaggerate the story, like Hindi movies, right? Everything is exaggerated. So he supposedly killed 999 people to get their little finger to make into a garland so that he can achieve some sort of spiritual advancement. The Buddha gave him a chance. The king was going to execute him. The Buddha gave him a chance. Of course, this is a pretty far-fetched story. You talk about it. A lot of stories are far-fetched. But the point is, forgive and give them a chance. Give them a chance to turn over a new leaf. And if they prove that they're not worthy of it, then you can take the next step. Be wise about it. Okay? But do not be harsh about it. Be wise about it. Okay, senility. Now, my father is senile. So it will happen to us as well. Even to the smartest, so-called intelligent person, it will happen. My aunt is an incredibly intelligent person. She has Alzheimer's now. She's senile. Can't remember a thing. Behaves like a child. She has Alzheimer's. You talk about, is it because she didn't use her brain? Oh no. She was a head mistress, very famous in the whole of Ipoh. She was giving tuition. She was highly sought after to give English tuition because she's from the Kirby train, old school kind of teachers who will teach you to write properly. Now children can't even write properly. Teach you to write, teach you proper grammar. She was highly sought after as an English tuition teacher, even after retirement, even when she was 70 plus. Still highly sought after. Parents would go to her in order for their children to have good grounding in English. So you're talking about a highly intelligent person here. She had Alzheimer's. And it strikes. So senility might happen to us as well. So what if our parents are senile? How do we handle it? With a lot of patience. With a lot of patience and understanding. So if you watch this little Spanish YouTube, it was circulating at some time. Did you watch this? Okay, maybe you didn't. It shows this man bringing his aged father to a bench outside their house. They were sitting down. And the father was very old, bent, with a walking stick. So this man was quite young, 20-something. So he sat down reading the newspapers, and the father just sat, just staring at the bush. And then a sparrow came and sat on the bush. And then the father said, "What is that?" The father cannot see very well, right? Saw something ruffle, heard something ruffle. "What is that?" And the son looked up and said, "It's a sparrow, Dad." After a few seconds, the bird ruffled its feathers. The father asked again, "What is that?" You know why? The father has forgotten. Short-term memory gone. So the father has forgotten. So he asked again, "What is that?" And the son got a little bit angry already. "Just told you it's a sparrow." "It's a sparrow, Dad. I just told you." After a few seconds, the father asked again. And the third time, the son got really annoyed already. He slammed down his newspaper and said, "It's a sparrow. I've told you how many times it's a sparrow," and spelled the word sparrow and everything. He got really angry with his father for repeatedly asking the same question. You know what the father did? Old people, be careful. The short-term memory is gone. The long-term memory is intact. I saw that in my grandmother. What happened 60 years ago, she can remember. Every single word, who said what and everything, she can remember. So the father held up his hand, walked back into the house, brought an old diary. It was all yellowed. He turned to the page and gave it to his son and pointed, read. And the son read. On it, there was an entry. Today, I took my son to the park. And he saw a sparrow. And he asked me 23 times, what is that, Dad? And I answered him 23 times, it's a sparrow, son. And each time I hugged him. I love him so much. You see? So very often, what our aged parents or grandparents demonstrate is just second childhood, because they're senile. Your brain deteriorates, right? Everything is impermanent. The brain deteriorates. So they're demonstrating second childhood. They don't want to take baths. Very typical of old people, no. They don't want to eat. They forget to switch on the lights, the fans. Very normal. They forget things. Like my grandmother, because my husband is not very familiar to her, she'll look at him. Who are you? Oh, I'm so and so. After a while, who are you? In 10 minutes, she can ask that 10 times. I'm not exaggerating. What you need to do is just to answer it like it's a fresh question. There's no point saying, I just told you. No point. They cannot remember. If they can remember, they won't ask. Right or not? They're not trying to annoy us. The trouble is, we think they're trying to annoy us. They are not. They honestly cannot remember. Even my father, when he had his brain surgery, before he had his brain surgery, completely senile, no. If you ask my daughter, who are you? So you just have to say, I'm so and so. Then he asks you again. You just say, I'm so and so, that's it. You just have to answer it like it's the first time. It calls for patience and understanding. The don't want to take baths, same thing. Some of us as children also didn't want to take baths, right? So when they go into second childhood, they also don't want to take baths. So need a lot of compassion and patience, and to remember that we were also like that. When they teach us things, how patient our parents were, and now we are to teach them to use the computer or the handphone, and they cannot remember, we start scolding them. Okay? So, last story, Sichuan earthquake. This is a real life story. Sichuan earthquake. Remember Sichuan earthquake? They were digging for survivors, and the rescuing team, they found this lady who was bent over, crouching like that. And the whole body was hard. The lady was dead. Very grotesque looking, crouching like that. So they felt her pulse and everything, and she was dead. She was hard as stone already. So they were about to leave. Then suddenly one of the rescuers said, wait, there's something under her. So they brought out, there was a bundle, this bundle under her, It was a baby, and it was still asleep. The baby was still asleep under her. So she was crouched like that, like protecting the baby. So they took the baby out. They were so happy to find someone alive, they opened out the bundle, the baby was sleeping peacefully. And on the baby was a handphone. There was a handphone. And there was an SMS message typed on the handphone. And it said, my dear baby, if you happen to be alive, remember that mother loves you forever. The mother typed that. Then the mother crouched over him to protect him. That's the love of parents. Responsible parents. And most of our parents are responsible. Okay?
Let's put our palm together and say sadhu to Dr. Chan. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.